Hi, welcome to your yoga lesson for today. So today we are going to be looking at our pigeon pose. So we're going to create our class around our peak pose, our pigeon pose. You may also have heard of it called swan. In some styles of yoga it is called swan pose. And often this pose is thrown in as a bit of a cool down, kind of not really paid attention to. Some classes it is the peak pose, but often, and particularly in a vinyasa style yoga, it's just seen as an additive, as an extra, and it's actually quite a tricky pose. It requires a lot of warming up and a lot of mobility to get into it, and it can be quite dangerous if we're not paying attention to it. And that's why today we're going to use it as our peak pose, so that we're fully warmed up and really paying attention to how we're getting into the pose, how we're flexing our body, how we're using our muscles to support ourselves in the pose. It's not just get in and sit there. We're going to use our muscles. We're going to hold ourselves into the shape to really create suppleness in the joints. So we're not looking for complete forcing deep into a stretch. And we're looking for that balance of strength and flexibility, particularly in our pigeon pose. If you have no idea what pigeon pose is, well done for getting this far through the introduction. Pigeon pose is a deep hip opening pose. So it opens both hips at the same time, but in a different direction. So there's an external rotation of one hip where the knee moves out to the side. And then the other hip, you begin to open the front of it. So sometimes you call them the hip flexors. We stretch the muscles at the front of the hip. Anyway, enough chit chat. Grab yourself a mat, make sure that you are fit and healthy as always to practice today. And we are going to dive in laying on our backs. So we're going to gently warm up and we're going to gently cool down at the end. And we're going to have our lovely hip opening and hip strengthening class today with our focus on our pigeon pose. So lay down onto your back. And just gently take the legs out long and take the shoulder blades maybe a touch closer together. Wiggle the hips, just get yourself all settled in and close the eyes. And just take a moment to relax. A moment to take a breather. And if you know what pigeon pose is, if you know if you like or don't like it, just let all expectation go. Pigeon pose is one of my favourite poses just for the fact that it feels so different every time. It's a really deep stretch and some days it feels really, really good. Some days it feels harder. And that's okay. So release all expectation right here, right now. Just let it all go. And it's just going to be us and our mats moving together through our flow. Creating a healthy hip joint. So it's not just about opening the hips, as you hear so often in yoga. It's about supporting our hips. So just allowing the body to settle in. Allow the shoulder blades to release onto the mat. And just create softness in the whole of your body. And take a few cycles of breath, shifting your breath to in and out through the nose throughout the whole of the class if you can. And then just begin to flex the feet so that the toes point towards the ceiling, the heels push away towards the end of the mat. Leave the left leg as it is and draw the right knee in towards the chest. Just loop the hands just below the knee on the shin. And exhale, allow the shoulder blades to soften into the mat. Close the eyes if you wish, and just gently release into this gentle stretch. So we're going to progress deeper into our hip stretches and strengthening poses as we move through the class. So don't worry too much about the depth of your pose right now. Don't worry about how the hips feel. Of course, notice if you feel stiff, that's okay. But there's no judgment. It doesn't matter if you do feel stiff. So just notice how you feel. And then bend your left leg. Take the sole of the left foot to the mat and then take the right foot across so the right foot lands on the thigh. And take one hand to either thigh. The right knee pushing away, both hips evenly sending away towards the base of your mat. Take a breath or two here. If you want to take it deeper, you can lift up the left leg and just thread the right arm through the gap between the legs and take a clasp behind that left thigh. Making sure to keep that right foot flexed we're going to talk a lot about flexing that right foot. So by flexing, you want 90 degrees or even more at that ankle. You don't want it relaxed. You want it nice and active, as though you were standing on the floor with that foot. As you exhale, allow the shoulder blades to soften into the mat and just take a breather. And then release the clasp if you've got one and take the left foot to the mat. And then take the arms just outside of the body and gently allow the legs to fall over to the left-hand side. So we're coming into a baby twist here. You can gaze down the right arm if you wish, if that feels good. You can close the eyes or you can keep them open, just taking a gentle, soft twist. You might feel that in the outer hip, you might feel it through the obliques. It's going to feel different for everybody. If you're not feeling much, just make sure that that top knee is heading towards the sky. If it falls in, you're going to ease off the stretch. So if you're feeling that you want a little more, really begin to open, externally rotate that right hip. And that's going to come in handy when we come into our pigeon pose. Inhale back to center. And then leave the left leg as it is. And we're going to take a hold, if you can, of the left foot. If you can't reach the left foot, just support the shin somewhere. And I've got my left and right wrong. I mean the right foot. Take a hold with your left hand onto your right foot. So opposite hand to opposite foot. And if you can't reach the foot, take the shin. And then support the knee with the other hand or just above the knee, so into the thigh perhaps. Make sure you've got that foot fully flexed, so right foot is really strong. So it's not floppy, it's really strong. And we're beginning to open into the hip and we're just moving side to side. So it's sometimes called cradle the baby. This one you can almost imagine that movement. If you had a baby, you would be rocking it side to side. That sort of movement, but with our shin. You want that foot nice and flexed so that our knee is not going under any pressure at all. We're just gently opening into the hip joint, creating more space. Only go as far as feels good. And then release that right leg all the way long across the mat. Keep the foot flexed, the heel pushes away, and draw the left knee into the chest this time. Allow the shoulder blades to melt into the earth. You can close the eyes if you wish. And settle back into that nasal breathing. So breathing through the nose. That's going to help you to keep calm. It's going to help you just to shift into your parasympathetic nervous system, your rest and digest. Particularly when we're opening up into the hips and stretching out around our hip joint. We store a lot of emotion here, so being in a relaxed state is a really nice way not only to deepen the stretch and stretch safely, but also just to allow emotions to come and go and not let them stress us out. When you're ready, just bending into the right knee. Take the left foot to the right thigh. Take a hand to each thigh and gently push away. If that's enough, stay here. If you want to take it deeper, pick up and take a hold behind the right leg. Unless you have an injury, try to do the same on the left and right. Obviously, if you're nursing an injury, then it may be different. But try and stick to the same on the left and the right if you can, just for the sake of balance. Keep your left foot nice and flexed. Take a breath or two here as you exhale. Feel that release. And then place the right foot to the mat. Take the arms outside of the body and take that gentle twist. So we're lowering outside of right foot towards the ground and outside of right leg all the way down to the mat. Left knee heads up to the sky as you open up through that left hip. So externally rotating left hip. Gaze over left hand if you wish, or just gaze to the ceiling. Take a cycle of breath. And just feel the body releasing, relaxing into the pose. Inhale to center. Keep the right leg as it is. Take the right hand to the left foot. Flex it so it's super strong. That ankle is almost locked out. And then you take your other hand, your left hand, to your left thigh, just around the knee. And then begin to cradle the baby, so moving it side to side. And you may notice a really big difference in your left and right. That is totally normal. It's okay, particularly in the hips. If we sit cross-legged a lot, or if you're sitting in a chair or walking, anything will build an imbalance in our body. Naturally, our body prefers one leg than the other. So you're going to feel a difference, but it doesn't matter. Just move gently side to side with that shin, opening into the hip, creating some space. And then release the foot, take a hold of both shins and rock with control, maybe even just in one rock up to boat pose. So you want your shins horizontal, and then we're going to release our hands if you choose. Take them alongside the shins, so fingertips point away, and we're strengthening now into those hips. So we've done a little bit of stretch, now we're activating them, getting those muscles switched on. Keeping going, that's it. Maybe find a smile if you can, breathing. Finding that strength in the hip flexors, so the muscles at the front of the hips, really good. And then rock all the way forwards to all fours. So just shuffle yourself back to the middle of your mat if you want. Spread the fingers. Inhale, dip the belly, lift the chest. Exhale, round through the spine. Inhale, open up. And exhale, round through the spine. So we're beginning to move a little bit more now. Come back to a neutral spine. And just bring the knees so they really are underneath the hips. Lift up the right leg. Don't allow yourself to dip into the back. So you want to keep a long neutral spine, which means you will be slightly drawing the belly button back towards the spine. You won't be able to lift that foot as high as if you began to bend into the back. And then we're going to open right knee out to the side. Draw a circle, bring the knee all the way to the midline and push it back. And all of this is happening whilst our pelvis stays flat. So we're mobilizing our hip joints. We're moving within our active range of motion. So this isn't a passive movement. You're going to start to feel that in that glute. You're going to start to feel the whole body firing up. Taking one more, bringing that right knee all the way around and then push it back. And then place it down. Hopefully, that's given you a massive example of the activation that you can find just by moving a joint within its active range of motion. Lift up your left foot and maybe find that dip of the chest and then draw it back. So find that good, neutral, strong spine. Open the left leg out to the side, squeeze it all the way around, and then push up to the side. And exhale, bring it to the center and up. Inhale as you come around. And exhale. One more, open to the side. You've got this. I know it's tough. And then come back. Good. Bring the knee to the ground. Take the hands a little bit further forward. Take the hands just wider than shoulder width and push up and back to downward facing dog. If you need to take a big bend in the knees, it might be your first downward facing dog of the day. Maybe you want to just gently push into one heel by bending the other leg slightly. Take a pause here. So rather than walking out your dog, just take it a little slower. And then switch sides. And then step the feet about 6 inches, maybe closer towards the hands, and step them mat width apart. If that feels too short, then begin to shuffle the feet further back, but keep them mat width apart. And really notice how that changes up the stretch in the calf muscles, the hamstrings. Just notice how that feels for your body now. And we're going to come back to center. Maybe pedal out the feet a little bit faster now if that feels good. And then we're going to take our left foot over to the right hand side and tuck the right foot in front of the left leg and take it over to the left hand side of the mat, just resting the top of the foot onto the earth. So almost as though you're crossing your legs, and you're going to feel that deeper stretch through the outside of that left glute, down the hamstring, really down the outside of that left thigh, just by slightly shifting up the foot position. Inhale back to center, and we're going to come to the other side. So take the right foot to where the left foot would traditionally sit in downward facing dog. And then take the top of the left foot over to the right hand side. So in front of the right leg and right the way over to the right of the mat. Push the hips up and back. Keep that inverted V shape. Take a breath in and relax. And then step both feet to the front of your mat. Take your big toes together. And exhale, come into a gentle forward fold. Bend the knees if you wish. Inhale, reach the hands all the way to the sky. Big breath in, gazing forward. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, bend the knees, plant the hands, step back to plank position. Nice and strong, pushing a space between the two shoulder blades. Exhale, lower knees, chest and chin, elbows graze alongside the body. Inhale, open the chest. And exhale, tuck the toes, push back, downward facing dog. Breathe and settle into your pose here. And then gaze between the hands, lift the right leg all the way up, sweep the right foot to between the hands and drop the left knee down, and inhale, sweep the hands up to the ceiling. Low lunge, exhale, fold forward, bring left foot to meet right, halfway lift, hands to shins if you need, or hands to the floor or a block. Exhale, release the head down. Inhale, stretch all the way up. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, plant the hands, step back, plank position. Lower knees, chest, chin, unless you are happy with your chaturanga, in which case propel the shoulders forward. Lower through chaturanga and then inhale to upward facing dog. Or stick to cobra if you prefer. Squeeze the glutes for both. Exhale, tuck the toes, downward facing dog. Inhale, lift the left leg to the sky and sweep the left foot to between the hands. Drop the right knee down. And inhale, reach the hands up. Exhale, take the hands to the mat. Take right foot to meet left, halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, sweep the hands all the way up to the sky. Exhale, forward fold. And step right the way back to downward facing dog. Take a breath, push the hips up and back, ground through the index finger and the thumb. Gaze between the hands, take the right foot forward, find your lunge position, left knee lifted this time, reach up to the sky. A little bit of activation now, slowly drop and just gently touch that left knee to the ground and then lift back up. So we're just transitioning between our high and our low lunge. Lower down and lift. We've got one more. Keep nice and strong through the body, lower. And lift, that's it. Release the hands to the mat. And exhale, step back to downward facing dog. From our downward facing dog, this time propelling the left foot to between the hands, setting up into your high lunge. So right knee lifted, fingertips high. You may find you want to just bring those back toes in an inch. When you're ready, exhale, graze the right knee to the mat and lift to high lunge. Lower. And lift is a really, really strong one. This, you'll feel all of the lower body working. And lift, good. Place the hands to the mat. And step all the way back, downward facing dog. Taking the feet together at the back of the mat. Inhale, lift the right leg up to the sky and begin to open the right hip, but keep the shoulders level. And then bend into the right knee, flex the right foot. So we're coming into a hip opening variation of downward facing dog. Take a breath, and then release to center. Switch sides, so the feet are together. We inhale, we lift our left leg, open the hip, bend the knee, left foot is flexed, shoulders both facing towards the back of our mat equally. So this tendency is that our left shoulder comes forward here. Send it back, don't let it. So we want that opening to come from the hip, not from the torso. And release back down. Chances are you need a little bit of a breather for those shoulders. So just take the big toes together, take the knees nice and wide and sink into a child's pose. And just get your breath back. Just take a moment. Just ground yourself back into breathing through the nose. And then when you're ready, we're going to come back to downward facing dog. So push those hips up and back. Feet hip width apart. Inhale, reach right leg to the sky. And exhale, sweep right foot to outside of right hand. So we're setting up for our lizard pose now. You can stay here. If you want to take it a little bit further, you want to creep the hands further forward. So rather than coming down onto the forearms, creep the hands further forward. This will give you a really active lizard pose. It'll keep that strength in the hip that we're looking for, as well as stretching too. So it's going to find that strength and stretch combination that we're really looking at today. When you're ready, bring the hands back. Step all the way back to downward facing dog. And then propel the left foot to the outside of the left hand. Stay nice and strong through the pelvis. And then wiggle the hands further forward should you choose. Try and keep the inside of that left thigh working a touch. So you don't want to fully collapse into the hips. You want a little bit of strength if you can. And then when you're ready, step both feet back. downward facing dog. And then when you're ready, lifting right leg all the way to the ceiling. And as you exhale, bring the knee to the chest. Take the right knee towards the right wrist and the right foot towards the left wrist. So we're bringing our shin towards parallel. It probably won't come to parallel, that's okay. Sinking the left knee down, the right shin comes onto the mat. And we're finding ourselves in our pigeon pose here. You may want to creep that back leg further away from you. And there's a few things before we get too deep. If you want to put a block under your right hip, go ahead. You want your hips to be even. You don't want to be sinking into that right hip. So if you need to find a block, grab a block, go ahead. It doesn't matter if your hips don't touch the floor. So often people tell you to force the hips down to the ground. Don't worry about it. If you need to put a cushion, a jumper, a block under that hip, go ahead. And then think about flexing the right foot. So in the same way we flexed our foot early on, take that flex of the foot now, and that's going to protect the knee as we come into this deep hip opening pose. If we have any tightness in the hip, we don't want it to come into the knee. We want to just stop in our stretch. So by flexing the foot, we're protecting our knee, making sure we stay nice and healthy. I like to rest on my fingertips here. If you want to put the palms of your hands down, then you can go ahead. Just think about keeping a nice open chest. Sitting up really, really tall within your pigeon pose. And then close the eyes. And it is a tough pose. It is a deep pose. At any point if you feel pain, please come straight on out. Hop yourself back to downward facing dog and then take a child's pose perhaps. But if you're not in pain and the mind is just chattering a bit, or if emotions are coming up, close the eyes and connect to that breath. Connect to your inhale and your exhale through the nose that we've been working on. And just notice how your body softens. If you then want to take it further, you can begin to fold forward and come onto the forearms. So although this eases off the stretch on the left-hand side, so on the left-hand side we were stretching the hip flexor. Although that stretch eases off as we come forward, it deepens the stretch on this right glute because we're increasing the length of that glute muscle as we fold forward. But still keep activation in the hips, so don't totally slump into the hips. Stay nice and strong if you can. Just for 3 more breaths. Really focus on your breathing. Nothing else matters right now, just you, your pigeon pose, and your time on your mat. When you're ready, wiggle your way back onto the hands if you did come down to the forearms. Tuck the back toe, lift the back knee, and then begin to lift the right knee. And step all the way back to downward facing dog. And then step the feet so they're about mat width apart, and then sway the hips left to right a touch. Wiggle out the hips and then bring the feet back together. Lift the left leg up to the sky and then slowly draw the left knee towards the left wrist and the left foot towards the right wrist. As you drop that right knee down, you may find that you need to shuffle it a bit further back. Set yourself up, wiggle your shoulders, get yourself all set up, either resting on the fingertips or the palms of the hands. Remembering you can use that block if you need a block or a cushion under the left hip to get the hips level. And then thinking about flexing that left foot. You might find you can't fully flex the foot, but flex the toe for me. Get that big toe as active as you possibly can, and that will help protect into your knee. If you want, you might want to gaze behind and just check that your foot hasn't sickled out. You want the heel and the toes in line. So you really want to just focus about keeping an active lower body. Although we're stretching, you want to stay active. Close the eyes. Find your breath. And just take a few cycles of breath here. Your chest is tall and proud. The hips are strong. You're settling in. If you begin to feel any pain, please come on out and head back to downward facing dog and then take a child's pose. If you want to take it further, settle onto the forearms. Just take a breather. sink into the pose. Find that softness, find that release. And then when you're ready, wiggle your way back up onto your hands, and we're gently going to lean into our left hip, take the left glute to the ground and draw the right foot around. So we're going to come to cross-legged. And then just take a gentle twist, twisting to the right, take left hand to right knee, take gaze behind your back shoulder. And then inhale to center, exhale, twist the other way. And then inhale, come forward and roll the hands out in front of you. Pull the hands away. Keep the hip bones gluing down towards the mat. Spine nice and long. Take an easy forward fold. Not worrying too much about how deep you're going. Just gently releasing. And then just come up a touch, roll all the way through, and then step back to downward facing dog. Finding yourself all the way back in our downward facing dog. From here, roll forward to a plank position, lower knees, chest and chin. Inhale, snake, open, wrap the elbows in, push the chest forward, shoulder blades knit together. Exhale, tuck the toes, downward facing dog. Inhale, come forward, lower the knees, the chest and the chin. Inhale, cobra. Exhale, downward facing dog. One more time. Exhale, come to plank. Breathe in. Exhale, lower knees, chest, chin. Inhale, open. Take a full cycle of breath here. And then exhale, this time push all the way back to child's pose. Take a breather. And then hop up to downward facing dog. And then we're just going to gently hop or step the feet to the front of the mat. Exhale, forward fold, release the head, release the neck, soften into the pose. Bend the knees, take the glutes all the way down to the ground and just roll all the way onto your back. Don't worry if it wasn't elegant, it's fine, just go with it. And as you roll onto your back, hug your arms around your legs and massage into the lower back. Just move slightly side to side and release, relax. Settle in. And then just take the hands onto the kneecaps and draw the knees in circles. So take them outwards and then inwards, coming down through the middle. Just massaging into the lower back. Lengthen the right leg away from you. Take your right hand onto your left knee. Take your left knee above your left hip, your left hand to the ground. Exhale. Begin to take a spinal twist. It doesn't matter how deep you go. If you choose, you can look over that left shoulder. Really, really try to keep the left shoulder in contact with the earth, just taking this gentle release through the body. And relaxing, allowing this gentle twist to become slightly deeper if you wish. And then inhale, release back to center, lengthen both legs away, take a full body stretch. And then exhale, bring the right knee to the left hand and take that twist on the other side. So just connecting right hand to the ground. Gazing over to the right if you choose, closing the eyes if you want, whatever feels good. And just create that length through the outer hip, through the obliques, and release yourself into the pose. Inhale to center. And just bend both knees and take the feet so they're mat width apart, take the knees so they come in towards one another. If you want, you can stay and do your relaxation in this pose. If you prefer, you can take a few breaths here and then come into traditional Shavasana. The choice is yours. Our traditional Shavasana, we have the palms facing up and the legs long. But if you want to take this rest here, this constructive rest for our psoas muscle, so the muscle at the front of the hip, we've worked that pretty hard today. And so you might enjoy the release that this gives you for your lower back and for the front of your hips. If not, then just lengthen the legs away and take the feet hip width apart. Close the eyes. Settle in to your relaxation. a very hard-earned relaxation today. And if you find that the mind is busy, that things are going on, that's okay. Let them come and go, but try not to get caught up in them. Try not to get worried about the thoughts that are coming and going. Try not to engage and start a narrative. Just let the thoughts wash over you. Let the thoughts settle. You are not your thoughts. Just encouraging the body to release, to relax. Knowing that at any point, if you want to move to traditional Shavasana, you're more than welcome. Take a few more cycles of relaxation, a few more cycles of breath here. Completely and utterly surrendering to this pose and to this calm. When you're ready, just connect one hand to your belly, one to your chest. Take a big breath in and exhale. Maybe sigh it out if you need. And gently, if you've got the legs bent, then just lengthen them away from you. If you've got the legs long, you might choose to bend them, or just roll the feet side to side. And then in your own time, gently just release yourself onto your right hand side. Take an arm underneath the head, the other to support you. And then just easily, slowly make your way up to seated. You can keep the eyes closed. Just find yourself seated in a cross-legged position. Bring the hands together at the heart center, so connect the palms together. Drop the chin to the chest and pause to notice how you feel right here in this moment. There's no right or wrong. Just notice how you feel. Gently blink open the eyes, allow the light back in, and slowly lift the gaze. Namaste. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have enjoyed that and also found it a little bit educational as well to help you with your pigeon pose and with your hip stretches and strengthening poses. Have a lovely rest of your day. And if you want to stay in the loop for everything that's going on, new classes, new courses, absolutely everything, then sign up to my newsletter. It's very sporadic, once a month really, no more than that. So if you want to sign up, then just click the link below in the description and you can put your email in there and you can become a part of the Namaste Naomi email family. So feel free to join if you want. I promise I won't scam you. Have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you again soon.